Addiction, to say addiction in the medical sense, means that there is a problem.
Okay.
And a lot of, you use alcohol as an example, so let me use alcohol as an example. How many of us have not tasted alcohol before or do not take alcohol? A lot of people do take alcohol.
Yes.
They go to parties, take alcohol. Once a while over the weekend, hang out with friends, take alcohol, attend parties, whatever. So drinking alcohol in itself is not addiction, right?
Okay.
Or whatever other thing that you are taking. And then we'll come to the doing, because it's not only, we don't only get addicted to substances, but also to even behaviors or habits. So you are giving an example of using, let's say I drink, let's say in a week 2 bottles of beer. You take beer 7 bottles every day, right?
That's
at the end of the
unfair.
This is just an analogy to
for somebody who doesn't take alcohol.
This is an analogy, because I don't take beer. I really am not the alcohol.
He's too quiet. You should probably use him as
No, I'm going to use you, Chancellor. This is for demonstration. This is just an analogy. So you are asking, at the end of the day, am I addicted or are you addicted? The answer is none of us may be addicted.
Okay.
What is addiction? Addiction is a compulsive. That's one of the first key things.
Okay.
Chronic. So compulsive means that you really have a strong urge.
Yeah.
And are compelled to do it.
Yeah.
Chronic, that means that it's something that is kind of have gone on and is going on for long, and probably is to continue on. So it's a compulsive, chronic, physiological and psychological need, okay, to depend on a habit forming substance. By habit forming, we are saying that there are things that once you start, it becomes a habit, and then you get to the stage where you become compelled to continue always, and then it goes on and on and on, and then at that time I use the word dependence. So addiction is dependence. The two are the same, but dependence is more of a medical terminology. In the stages of, we have different ways people use drugs. By saying drugs, I'm talking about habit forming drugs, things that usually you take that make you want to do again. And probably we'll look at examples of that. For example, is probably alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana. So once you take those, it doesn't always mean that once I take them I'm addicted. There are different uses. Some people have recreational use of drugs. That means that we take it for fun. We take it when we are partying. So it's just recreational use. Then we have problematic use of drugs. That means that the habit is now becoming a problem. But not all problems are addiction. So there is harmful use of drugs or substance. That means I probably take more than the threshold that or the limit, because even with alcohol, males have a limit of using 21 units per week at most, and then females 14 units per week. There is a way we calculate per the type of alcohol.
Physiologically, even between male and female,
yes,
the threshold for both is different.
Yes. The female threshold is much lower.
I didn't know that.
And then the male, it's because of a certain enzyme that breaks down the alcohol.
Okay.
The alcohol dehydrogenase. So in the female, you can't take too much high, because the enzyme levels are different in females versus males. Okay. So a male can drink more at a time, in terms of probably calculating per week what they can take, compared to what the female can take. So somebody can have a harmful use of the drug. That means they are taking excess, too much, more than they should take at a time. And that is leading to problems like affecting their physical health or their psychological health. Their emotion is being disturbed, or something else is being affected. So a lot of the time people do harmful use of drugs, that means the way they are taking the substance is much more than it should be, and it's also having a bearing on their physical health and on their psychological health. But once we move from harmful use, there are other uses in between. To make it simpler, I've spoken about the recreational uses, which is mostly a non-problematic use of a drug. Then we have the problematic uses, which include the harmful use of the substance. Then we have hazardous use. Hazardous use basically means that you take the substance and then it kind of obscures your ability to assess risk. Okay, so you take alcohol and now you don't see that you are in the middle of the road or driving too fast or whatever, so it clouds your judgment per the time. Then once we now talk about addiction, or medically speaking, because usually in our diagnostic manual we don't use the term addiction, it's dependence, substance dependence. So once you get to dependence stage, that means that this drug or substance or this habit has become something your body now needs physiologically and psychologically, and it has become a compulsive use. It's like you are no longer in full control. You are compelled to use because you feel you really need it. Actually, your psyche, your mind tells you you really need it. You can't do without it. And then physiologically, that means even how your body works, it begins to malfunction because it's telling you that you need it, else you can't function the way you should, because certain brain receptors have gotten a hold on it, and it has altered how the brain naturally, processes for the body to work. So now without it, you cannot. That's why it becomes dependent. That now you need it. Without it, you can't function. And that is a problem, because you should have been able to function without it. But now that you've gotten to that stage where you've kept on using the drug over and over again, now without it, you can't function. So that is addiction. Just to end on addiction, in more technical terms, you say addiction is a chronic and complex brain disorder. So it's serious. I don't want to say it, but let me say it. It's a complex and chronic brain disorder.
Brain disorder.
So the brain, that's how it's been, it's technically seen in the medical.
So based on what you said, I'm looking at, I think somebody sent me an article earlier in the week to read on addiction, and the website said one simple way of describing addiction is the presence of the 4 C's. The first one is the craving. The second one is the loss of control of amount or frequency of use. And then the third is compulsion to use. And then the final one is the use despite consequences. I think that's the one I actually find more compelling. Use without question. I think you are very much aware that this thing is harmful to you, and yet in spite of whatever you know, you decide to use it. Which will actually mean that you are losing a sense of control over yourself and discipline. I mean, this is very, very interesting. But the issue of craving, I'm not so sure. I know everybody has cravings and all. I want to find out, for instance, particularly with pregnant women. So the stories about pregnant women is when they have this, I don't want to say absurd, but very strange cravings.
So just before you even finish your question, that's a different thing. We all do crave. I'm sure I'm here craving for food because I'm hungry. You get it. So out of the context of addiction, you have cravings. Pregnancy cravings are something different. It doesn't have to do with addiction. But once you meet, let's use that 4C because it makes things simple. Once you meet all 4, you are craving so much for the thing, you've lost control. Okay, so you crave for it and you must have it. You can't not have it. That is what you think, because you've lost control. You are compelled. That's the compulsion. So no matter what, you must have it. Okay, and then you are experiencing so much, you lost your job because you are using, your relationship is broken down, you spent all your money and begging for just to get extra money to buy the substance. That is addiction. Okay, so cravings isolated is not addiction, but we are trying to say that addiction, part of the component that is very cardinal in there is the cravings, because before you are going to get the thing, is because you crave for it. The cravings are so strong and so bad that you can't control it. You need it, you want it, you must have it at all costs. Maybe I should be very practical with you. What people can do. I can't tell the stories, but probably just yesterday there was a client on my ward I was managing, and I think somebody mentioned pethidine, right? There are certain drugs that medically we use for treatment, but they have tendencies for addiction. When we say that, it means that those drugs, if you use it over time, with time, the brain is going to get used to it and start getting hooked on it because of the pleasure or extra benefit it gives you. Okay, so probably I'll talk about the reward system, but then once you start using and then you continue using, so if it was just a medication that the doctor prescribed for pain, and then you started and it gave you your pain relief, perfect. And there are drugs like that. Common examples is pethidine, morphine. These are classified under the group of drugs we call opiates. So opiates are one of the subclasses of drugs that are easily abused because they really stimulate the reward centers in the brain. So I mean, this guy has he's been using all his money to purchase or get a drug at all costs and use it. Okay, he's so addicted to it now, to the point that he's taking loans. He's run out of his own money, taking loans because he's a salaried worker, and to buy the drugs. Now he is also bankrupt, so that when his salary is supposed to come, remember that the habit is still ongoing. So we buy more. Before the salary hits the account, thankfully the loan is being deducted from his account, so he stands by the ATM and waits. As soon as it drops, he will withdraw before the loaners can take it out,
make the deduction,
and everything in that money goes to buying that drug. He is broke. He needs to get a certain therapy rehabilitation service. He can't afford it because the money just goes to. So you know the consequences, and
this
you
is
can
the fourth
experience
one.
it.
They use, what's the name?
Yes,
despite the consequences.
So actually, in more technical terms, we have certain criteria that we use to diagnose addiction or a dependence on a drug. Okay, so it includes all that we have said: your compulsive use, loss of control, your cravings. And then you come to before I come to even that fourth point of losing the consequences, you use despite the harm. So harmful use is within dependence because it's affecting your physical health. Some people are using a lot of the ones who inject the drug I was just talking about, they get a lot of ulcers on their body, wounds all over, sore all over, and they are still using. If you use alcohol and it's affecting your liver and your lungs, you go to the doctor, they tell you that, Charlie, the alcohol is affecting you, but you can't stop. So harmful use is part of addiction because it tells you that despite the fact that it's affecting your physical and psychological health, you still can't stop. Then affecting your relationships with others. Okay, so you begin to neglect other important things. It's part of the criteria. Other important things just to get the drug. So it all goes into using despite the consequences. So yes, addiction, it goes through at least these very cardinal things must be there for you to say
somebody is addicted.
Or you have a substance dependence.